demons, witches, goat people. All of that here on Indigenous Paranormal.
Well, evil said to Stupid, you look like you could use a friend. And Stupid says, that's great, I ain't never had me one of them. Then Stupid said to Evil, how does this friendship work? And Evil says it's easy, you just stick your head down in the dirt. So Stupid dug a hole and stuck his head down in the sand. And Evil had free rein to carry out his wicked plan.
The first investigation of the Kenhte Paranormal Society brought us down here to the Grove in Christ Church. The Christ Church was built in 1843, but upon our first investigation here, we realized we couldn't just investigate the church without going to the Mohawk Landing in the former St. George's Church. Through extensive historical research and the assistance of our medium, we were able to uncover the haunted history of Tyendinaga. Here's Trudy with more.
And what I call discernment with a capital D, where I'm using my metaphysical gifts to find out what information comes to me from what you put in the chat. And I know I came back and I said, Andrew, you have got a hot mess. This is the hot mess investigation because there is so much going on. And there were souls, burdened, dark souls that had their regrets and their negative self-talk stuff going on from the cemetery, which had been there since the late 1700s. The church was there, the cemetery was there, and people have been buried there, for all those years and up until whenever they stopped burying people there. But it was like a couple of centuries, I think, of people being buried in that cemetery, and there were quite a few of them that were burdened. And I gave a count of 26 that you guys gathered up that first night. And then you also had the Reverend John Stewart, and you had Joseph Brant, and they were very key figures in history, which I knew nothing about because I'm in the United States. I'm not in Canada, and probably pretty clearly I'm not Indigenous either. So I'm just not that up on the cultural things that were going on in your area. What I know that I just started connecting very quickly to all of those, and the first one that came through to me though was not buried in the cemetery. Oh, that was another thing. You were like, there's some of them talking to us that say they weren't buried in the cemetery, but they died around there. And there was 13 of those. And I said, okay, I will ask them, I will invite their souls to come with me to just kind of take them out of the mix of everything that was going on in that hot mess. And I did start hearing some of the stories from those souls as well later. But the first one that I remember getting information from as a medium was not buried in the cemetery and not part of the 13 other ones that came. And that was a medicine man for the Mohawk in that area back in the late 1700s. And he had tried so hard to tell the people that this Christian religion was not going to be good for them. I mean, I believe he just had like visions of the future. He was sensitive. He was gifted. He, tried to serve his people, and they didn't want to listen. And there was, I believe the dynamic was just this tremendous pressure from the Christian church to convert the Indigenous to Christianity in order to save their souls. That was what the Christians thought, that they had to get that job done.
The cairn is a memorial to the landing in 1784 and to the location of the community's first church, St. George's Church. For those following the way of the Church of England, the construction of a church was a challenge and a priority. The Church of England had been an important influence in the lives of the Mohawk people in Mohawk Valley for decades. The first church was completed in about 1794 and enlarged about 1799. It was both a place of worship and a community hall for meetings and celebrations. This heritage trail is based upon an original pathway on the old church site, one of the many used by the Mohawks of the Bay of Kenhte in the very early years of the community. Later, the pathway came to link the old church site with the new church site, Christ Church, which was consecrated in 1843. The community, therefore, has used this trail for over 200 years. And this St. George's Church is the exact same church that Reverend John Stewart would come to his monthly mission meeting.
Thank you. Did somebody come fix and burn it down? Can you come over and step on this light over here? It'll just help us talk to you a little bit better. Right here. What was your name? Peter. North? Are you forced north? Reverend John Stewart, come talk to us, please. Reverend John Stewart, let us know that you're here with us. Say yes or no if you're here with us.
The Reverend John Stewart was known as a zealous missionary, loyal to the Church of England and the British Crown. During the American Revolutionary War, Stewart's church would be desecrated and his family threatened by the American patriots. Because of his loyalty to the Crown and the Church of England, John Stewart was nearly arrested before Joseph Brant, also known as Tyendinaga, stepped in. Joseph and his sister Molly Brant smuggled Reverend Stewart, his wife Jane O'Kill, and their 7 children north to Lachine and later to Cataraqui, where they would make their permanent residence. Although their residence was in Cataraqui, Stewart continued on his missionary work from Kingston to Niagara. Although, he would always make time to visit the Fort Hunter Mohawks at St. George's Church for a special sermon to his friends and allies who saved his life and that of his family. As we moved farther up the pathway, we came across a clearing close to where there had been a house or barn in the late 1700s. Because of our previous EVPs, we decided to hold another spirit box session here.
Is there something you'd like to say to us? Is there something? Repeat. We're getting a lot of voices. Yeah. Just take the shit out. Alright. This is the location of an old house. 5 buildings? Did you say? Was there a house here? Was it a rectory? A house. Who lived in this house? Who lived in this house? Wow. Here tonight for the question. Did Reverend John Stewart live in this house? I want to know if Reverend John Stewart lived in the house that was here. Did Joseph Grant live here? With John? Good Lord.
After our spirit box session in the clearing, we moved up the trail where you arrive behind the Christ Church, almost in the middle of the cemetery. Later, you'll see footage of children laughing at 1:30 a.m. when the camera is left alone.
As mediums, I think that we should help souls that are burdened by self-judgment or regrets or even what they consider their own sins, and help them become unburdened of all of that and move into the light to do good work. And the fact that y'all are willing to do that and that you have done that, it just really makes me happy to be part of this group, but that we're helping the souls and we're not just, trying to find stuff out about them. So the first place that y'all wanted to go, which was very, very intuitive, it was very intuitive that you went there, was the Christ Church.
Turn my multimeter on. I set it to non-contact voltage, so in theory that would work as an EMF detector because I think I just had something touch my head. I don't think it was a bug because it felt huge.
So one of the things that started happening, I believe, I mean, this is something y'all checked historically, is that Indigenous children were starting to get sent to the Christian schools at that time, and Reverend Stewart was part of that process of encouraging it, that this will help, these children, become part of the colonial culture and become Christian, and therefore their souls will be saved. Well, basically, that was a crock. It didn't work like that. And what happened was a lot of children died, and at these schools, and their souls were not cared for as a result. And so another thing we found fairly quickly was that Reverend Stewart was holding 7 souls of children that had died at the schools and come back. They had started at Tyendinaga, and they had come back uh, to their home, and then they fixed on him as the source of their sadness, basically. So
How did he bring you here? How did the priest bring you here? I don't know how to decipher them and take them apart. You're not getting blood. Are you the one that cut?
and they kind of fixated on Reverend Stewart, and I guess you could say he was haunted in the last years by them, which from my perspective means he was a medium. He was aware of them, and it bothered him, and he was really sad about it. Um, the medicine man let me know that he died, froze to death in the woods because he left the people. He just moved himself out of town, I guess you could say, and because he just was having so much conflict, and so he actually died before Reverend Stewart did. So another soul that I became aware of in that area was of a shapeshifter. This is a sort of a magical creature that serves Mother Earth and provides life force energy to keeping an area healthy in terms of the nature of it. And this one was a bear form. He would shift into the form of a bear, and he died pretty hard death. He was killed by the Mohawk in the area because um, he was blamed for the deaths of some of the people. And so this is a aspect of burdened souls, is that they don't always come clean right off the bat about what's going on with them. And it took us a little while. It took some days, maybe even a week, to get Reverend Stewart and the medicine men to talk about their conflict, and to reveal that the biggest problem in the area was that the medicine man had called a demon, and he was trying to make a bargain with the demon to take care of the problem of Reverend John Stewart. Only it didn't work like that, and some of the Mohawk died, and that's where the shapeshifter was blamed for their deaths. And finally, the medicine man had to swallow his pride and go to Reverend Stewart and say, "I've lost control of this demon, and maybe you, with your knowledge, can help contain it." And so that's what they did. Unfortunately, they didn't do the right thing. They did not manage to get the demon sent back to the underworld. They bound it in place.
All right, so some of y'all are probably curious about that video about the Wendigo that we posted. They're like, what the heck's going on? Where were they? What were they doing? So it was like 3:30 in the morning. I don't remember the exact date right now. It was back in mid-September. The car was parked literally where I parked right now. I'm standing maybe 100 meters from it now. The phone that we were recording with was sitting on the roof of the car, and Andrew was standing on my left and I was standing on the right, and we're both leaning on the car like this, and we're having a smoke, and you can hear me swat a mosquito on my arm at one point, and so it was dead silent, quiet out, and we're standing here just, what have we learned? And it's like, okay, and we're just sitting there shooting the shit and talking, and We're just talking about the Orange Lodge, and we were doing some research at some point about that. Just we'd come across it in the research, so we wanted to learn about it, and we were standing there talking about that. And we heard his voice shouting off in the woods, and it's from where we are now. It's about 600 meters away, maybe 650 meters away from where we are. And there's a couple fields and then a thick brush, and it sounded like it was coming from in that thick brush or just behind it in the field. At one point it sounded like it was in front of that. Sporadically it was within 800 meters from where we had heard it, and running back and forth across the road, and just kind of around back in there. And it's what we heard, and we're standing there talking, and if anybody knows about Wendigo, once you talk about it, they can hear it, and once they know that you figure it out, they're going to come for you. And that's what it said. You better run right at the end of it. And we just kind of looked at each other, and we turned the audio off. That was the last that you heard. And after that, we actually got in the car and drove up the road very slowly with the lights off. The lights in all the homes were out. Nobody was really up watching TV. There was nobody out driving around. Mind you, this is a Wednesday night at 3:30 in the morning, so there's nobody out. There's no dogs really barking, other than a few sporadic wild res dogs barking in the background, but far off. We drove up to Deserano Road and turned right and stopped the car and parked on the side of the road with the windows down and stood there and listened, and not a sound, not a peep, but crickets and frogs. Drive down a little bit more and nothing, and come back near the church and nothing. Nobody was up, there was not a sound. But we're grateful to get that on audio, and I can say I've spent a lot of time in the bush, up north and out west, and I've never heard anything like that in the bush, and I won't forget that. It scared the hell out of me. It was interesting.
So what I've learned about the Orange Lodge is, it's Masons. I've been talking to people around the community about it, and from what you said, and I read a bit about it, and what it was is, it was part of the church, but not part of the church.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted it for. What is this person screaming about over there?
I don't know. Yeah, somebody's legit calling their dog, and it's fucking annoying. There it is. But the dog and that voice was not the same as that fucking growl that was back there.
No, those dogs were going ape shit back there.
Mm-hmm.
They were quiet when I rolled up, and they were going nuts as soon as we started.
Yeah, I think we're good.
You know what? That might not be a person.
I know. Because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the location where Reverend John Stewart and the medicine man bound the demon. It's also where we heard children laughing at 1:30 in the morning, and where Hunter was touched at 1:30 in the morning in the graveyard.